the boomers in general have a view that I'm gonna live longer. I'm going to work longer. There's less because of their lifestyle. There tends to be less just withering and going away. You know, we're fighting like crazy to try to hang on to our youth. And that can be a great thing in one respect from sort of a lifestyle and vitality perspective. But what we often see is that they also are fighting just as hard to not give up the reins in their businesses. And the next generation, the Xers and largely the millennials are seeing that, and they kind of don't like that. They see that as being a barrier to their growth, and they're taking on greater responsibility and leadership. So in a way, it's kind of you have to take the bitter with the sweet, and unless we boomers can get past that and be able to say, no, I'm going to have this vital and active life, but I also recognize that I need to transition the leadership of my business to another generation behind me. Unless they can make that leap, then sometimes it can be a problem. It's this notion that the worldviews of the millennials and the boomers tend to be somewhat in conflict. And so in order to have a really successful succession plan, it's going to take some recalibration of worldviews, certainly a depth of understanding of their respective worldviews, because then you can create the potential that despite my manifold talent and experience and great personal gifts, that despite all of that, I'm going to fail because we just don't get along on how we see the world. And so the company that I'm as a boomer I'm passing along is one that the millennial is saying, I don't believe in that business. I don't believe in where it's going. I don't believe in what you're trying to accomplish with it. We don't normally have to talk about that in the workplace. It's just about building projects, right? And so that's the challenge in bridging that gap is we have to talk about things that we don't normally talk about in the process of a construction build. We have a great tendency to think about where we are today and then to do our planning for the future based upon what I see today. And I think the best way to describe an alternative to that, wherever you fall on this from a hockey standpoint, is you just listen to what Wayne Gretzky had to say about it, right? He's always skating to where the puck is going to be, not where the puck is today. And so you have this guy who's physically not terribly intimidating, but yet is arguably the greatest player in NHL history. And is because he had a forward vision. He was anticipating where the puck was going to be and put himself in position to win at that moment, not so much in this moment. And so we have seen that this idea of transition and succession, it requires that same mentality that I have to, yes, I realize where I am today, but I'm ultimately going to make sure that my business is skating to where the puck's going to be 10 years from now when I'm stepping out of the business. Nobody wants to tell the boss bad news, and nobody really likes to say the hard things that could fracture relationships or could be misunderstood, or that frankly, could be recriminations. People are careful about that. They understand politically and culturally how far I can go without crossing a line of being perceived to be negative or obstructionist or just being a problem, as opposed to people who have an outside perspective who will come in, and we have a saying in the southern U.S., who don't have a dog in the fight, who are just coming at it, trying to give their very best counsel, trying to give the most accurate feedback and perspective. And if it goes a certain way, fine. If it goes another way, well, I may not feel so good about it, but I'm not going to lose as a result of that. People on the inside are heavily staked in how this process plays out. And so they will have a compelling tendency, even if they're not aware of it, to offer feedback that serves their own end and offer perspectives that is slanted by that realization that if this goes a certain way, I'm going to benefit from it. So bringing in an outside party can break through that fog and create much more honesty and authenticity. the one thing that, for me, just based upon past personal experience, that I think is really key is to begin. It is to recognize that this issue may not confront me for 8 years or 10 years or 12 years, but the time for me to start the process of engaging in the deeper questions, asking them, answering them, pulling in other people to help me with that is now. There's absolutely nothing urgent about it, but it's critically important. And there's been a lot of research done around this notion of urgency versus importance. And what we find is that as leaders, we achieve great things when we can start spending more of our time on those things that are not urgent, but are particularly important, because we tend to live, especially today in the pace that we execute on, we live in a very urgent-oriented world. So being able to begin when things are not urgent and to let it evolve over time, let the people who are engaged in this transition begin to think differently and act differently and explore different questions, is really the key to success. So even if it's not going to be finished in a short time frame, beginning in a short time frame, beginning now is what we believe is one of the real absolute critical aspects of a successful transition plan.